Hi, this is Tony Morgan of the Masterful Engineer program, and today's boiler what we're looking at is a Worcester 35 CDI. Before we go any further, just a general safety notice: when you're working on any boiler, make sure you carry out your gas and electrical safety checks. You can see at the side there the spur switch. We're going to turn the power off, obviously. As I said, make sure it's earthed and that the appliance is dead when we're working on it. So I'm just going to turn the power off on that switch there, and then just going to take the fuse out as well. This fuse is a 5 amp, it should be a 3 amp fuse, so make a note of that. It should be a 3 amp fuse. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to check for earth continuity, so I'm going to do that next. Okay, I'm just going to check, make sure there's no power going to the boiler. Just going to use my voltage stick here. So that's, so you can see there's power there, but there's nothing coming out going to the boiler. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to check the earth continuity. So I'm going to put it on the casing there and on the screw, so we know it's earth, so that's okay. So I'm going to go inside the boiler and make sure under here in this region, that's where the power comes in, and make sure it's dead there as well too. So I'm just checking that, definitely no power on there, so we know everything's good and it's safe to work on the boiler. And final confirmation, check with your multimeter, make sure there's no power there, and you can see on multimeter there's no power there, so it's definitely safe to work on the boiler. So on this boiler, looking from the underside, there's a diverter. We'll see better when I drop the panel down, but I'm looking at the back of it now. You can see there the isolation valves, and the one I'm going to be turning the water off. This boiler's fitted really low down, so it's not very good to see. So it's that one. I'm going to shut off the cold water inlet. You've got the central and isolation valves, which I don't really want to touch them because they do leak. That's one there, and one's on the other side of the boiler. There, that's the other one here. So I'm going to drop the pressure first, and then I'm going to repressurize the expansion vessel, turn off the cold water like I said before, and then drain down the boiler. Well, I'm going to take the screw out to lower down this panel. Should drop down. We've got this side here, which is, the screw's broken, well the plastic's broken, as you can see. This boiler's outside, as you can tell, and it's not great for working on because it's so low down. It's outside and it's not very warm, it's quite cold. So I've got my hat, my coat on, working in these great conditions. You can see this boiler's, it's fitting in the chimney breast, and it's not the best place, but anyway, as professionals, this is what we got to deal with. So this is a hot water heat exchanger which has to be removed. The diverter's here, so I'm going to have to take this off first. Let's say what I'm going to do, I'm going to drain the boiler down. I'm going to repressurize the expansion vessel, so I'm going to do that in a minute, which you'll see on with this job. So what I've done now, I've opened the pressure relief valve. You can see I've got it cranked open there. I've closed the isolation valves underneath like I said before. I've also attached the pump onto the expansion vessel. I'm going to pump the expansion vessel up to about 1 bar. This is a dual purpose reason why I'm doing this. The first reason is to expel any water trapped in the boiler, so when we take the diverter valve out and this heat exchanger out, we don't get excessive water coming out the boiler. And the second reason is we need the expansion vessel to have air in it so it doesn't over pressurize and then start opening this pressure relief valve in the future when if the pressure gauge goes too high. So that's the two reasons why we do this. You should do this on all boilers, all old boilers, what you're working on. Always, if you're changing a diverter valve, always repressurize the expansion vessel for the reasons what I've just mentioned. So I'm pumping it, and you can see the water coming out. This has been pumped out. As I said before, it's dispersing the water out the boiler. Now just think, if you'd have not done that and opened a connection, you'd have all that water flooding out. So this is the reason why we do it. So the water's now stopped coming out the pressure relief valve, and if you look at the pressure gauge on the pump here, it's slightly over. I'm just going to take it down a bit. So that's where you want it on your gauge, and then you know you've got the right air pressure inside the expansion vessel. So what I've done now, you can see I've put these carrier bags over the PCB area to stop any water going on the electrics. So what we're going to be doing now is removing this screw, and also there's a nut connection underneath the boiler what we're going to have to undo in order to remove this. I'm going to undo this screw first, pliers to slide it out there, so just put that to one side like that. Next thing I'm going to do, we're going to have to remove the internal filling loop. They call it a charge link. Looking from underneath the boiler, you can see that screw. That screw's got to come out, and then we're going to pull that charge link towards us to get that charge link out. So you can see it's quite tricky. Right, what we're going to do next, I'm going to remove this component here, this part. Got to slide that off. Not the best access to get it. It's quite tight really. This board's not been touched for ages. It's starting to go. And there we go. So pull that off like that. You get the screwdriver and just prise that down like that. So it's just a bit of trapped water in it, and then we're gonna pull that this way to get the rest of this charge link out. I've got all of it now. I'm just trying to wangle it out and pulling out the diverter valve at the same time. So there you go. I've pulled out the charger link now, so that's what we were trying to get out, so that's out now. I've got my span on this nut now. This is to which is connecting the plate to the diverter, but it's quite stiff to get on it. No, we're going to need a bit of WD-40 on that one. Okay, so I've got these bigger pairs to get on this nut because it's quite stubborn, so that's got it. That, yeah, so we're all cool. So I'm going to undo that nut now. I'm taking the heat exchanger up now and just pulling it forward off the O-rings and connections, and there you go. It's coming out now. So that's a plate heat exchanger. in there, that's the water regulator, that's a flow limiter I should say. So we'll put that there, ready to go back later on. If you just tip that up, there might be bits of water in there, so you can see, get that bit of water out for when you're putting it back later on. Oh, we've got a leak, and that's because somebody has gone and flushed the toilet. But you can see we've got our little bag to protect it. Now what's just happened is somebody's going to flush the toilet upstairs, and so something to bear in mind. This is what can happen, and it's just happened to me right now. So having that bag there was really needed, otherwise I'd have been flooded face on. So this is what happens in real life. Now this is the washers which you get in the packaging. We're not going to use these. I'm going to use these type instead, because these ones, they're not reliable, they split and they cause leaks. So I use these, I buy these independently, these green ones, they're far more reliable. So word of warning, don't use them ones. So with a standard knife, be careful, and then just break it off like that. They're very brittle, so it'll come off quite easy, and then the new O-ring will go on that. So I'm just attaching the new O-ring. That's it. So we'll be putting silicone on this one, and on this one as well, for when we put the plate heat exchanger back. It'll go on relatively easy. The other thing what we're going to do as well, in this area, we're going to take that O-ring out and replace it. So we're going to do that as well. So I'll just flip that out of there like that. And just comparing the new and the old, make sure that's the right size. What I do, put a bit of silicone on it just to stick it down, and then hold it in position like that. So ready to put the plate back in now. So you just line that up with the O-rings, just push it over a little bit to get on. It is a bit tricky. You've got to sort of wangle it on. It's not the easiest thing to do. I have to pull it off again. And that's on now. That's it. So what we do, this is our other washer, which we're gonna, you can see it's trying to put it there like that. You've got to pull it back a little bit so you can get the washer in, but at the same time keep it straight, and then you can tighten the nut like that. And then we're going to put the clip in here, clip in here. I better to do it in the hand first. Again, it's a bit fiddly. To try and get that in there, you might use a different tool. So just got it in finally, bit of a struggle, so you can see now that's gone in. And now we're going to put the screw in, which locks it all together. So then that's just going to be tightened up, and just do the final checks before we turn on. Going to make sure the PRV is shut now, so give it a few flicks like that and that'll keep it closed and stop it from leaking. So we're going to be opening the valves underneath the boiler for the heating, and then we're going to be opening the valve for the hot water. But word of caution, make sure you close the hot water tap. I've left it open, so we're going to close that, and then we're going to turn the hot water on, cold water inlet on, and if we have got any leaks you can then jump on it quick and turn it off. If you leave the tap open and you turn on the water inlet and say you have got a leak and you go to close the tap, you might leave the boiler unattended, and unknown to you the boiler is like leaking all over the place. So that's why you've got to close the tap first, and then you can see any immediate leaks and then shut off the inlet, so you minimise any problems. We've now filled the system back up, we've turned the cold water on, so that's all good, and we filled the system up, pressurised it, no leaks, so that's all good. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to turn the boiler on, and this is very, very important you listen to this. When we run this boiler, you must run in central heating mode first. Do not run it in hot water mode or airlock and overheat. So you run it in central heating mode first, and that will remove any air from the boiler. On this particular boiler as well, it's got an auto air vent which is at the top of the boiler. It's difficult to see at the moment because of the way it's situated, but it's up there. Ensure that's open to let the air out. Turn the boiler on, we've got it in heating mode, but we've got a problem, and the problem is what I said before, we've got an airlock, and the automatic air vent what I spoke about is up here. But because this particular one's in a bad position, it's difficult to show you, so I'm going to get a safety pin, I'm going to shove in the auto air vent to let the air out, to clear the air. So as I said, you won't be able to see what I'm doing here. You've seen a bit of water come out then, out the air vent. So it seems like there's air from that is being already dispersed. So what we're going to do now, we're going to turn it on and off a few times. It's just starting up now. If you look here, you can see the burner light on, so that means the flame's on and it started up. So we'll just turn the thermostat up, and that will hopefully run. We'll leave that on for a few minutes, but it's still getting a bit warm. It's still got a bit of air trapped in it, so you might have to leave like that on for a few minutes until it stops doing that before you run the hot water. You can hear bits of air coming out the auto air vent now. I've been trying to press it a bit more to remove this airlock out the boiler. So this is what you've got to persist in doing, so the boiler works normally. You can hear the air dispersing now from the boiler. It's running longer now, so the air's gone, and in a few minutes it'll be safe to run it in the hot water mode without airlocking and overheating. As you can see, this boiler's been fitted outside, and you can see the conditions I've been working in. Not very good. We're going to run it in the hot water and just see how that's working on that. Now on hot water, you can see the hot water light on, divert valve's working, and it's all working great. So that's all good. So we're just going to do our final checks before we go. Make sure you do your final checks, gas checks, any electrical checks you need to do. Make sure the customer's happy with what you've done. And this is going to be the end of the video. Thank you for watching and hope to see you soon.